Tonight on the program, we'll bring you exclusive visuals of the former National Security Advisor, Colonel Dasuki, retired, and Mr. Sowore leaving DSS detention as we speak to the government on the questions raised by the recent release of the former NSA and the convener of the Revolution Now protest. And will the aggrieved members of the ruling All Progressives Congress sheathe their swords, perhaps in the spirit of the season? Well, a reconciliation committee has been announced, but even that committee has been the subject of controversy. So is peace in sight for the warring factions of the APC? Well, that's a big question tonight. Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas to you. You're welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I am Kayode Okikelu. So, Mr. Omoyele Sowore and Colonel Dasuki, retired, have been released. But that's not the story tonight. Mr. Sowore had been in DSS custody for 141 days and Colonel Dasuki for 1,484 days in spite of court orders ordering their release on bail. But that's also not quite the story tonight. So the United Kingdom, the Christian Association of Nigeria, Arawa Consultative Forum, and many more have commended the government for their release. But again, that's not the story tonight. So what's the story? Well, let's begin by showing you the moments leading up to the eventual release of the two men. Now, this is exclusive to Channels Television. Watch this. You see Mr. Sowore also leaving the DSS premises. So this is what happened before these next set of videos, which have since gone viral. Watch this.
We'll let you guys into a time to talk to the media. Okay? Don't worry. The only thing is to thank Nigerians. They made this happen, and they should not relent. Nobody can take the people who are deserving. Merry Christmas to Nigeria. Revolution now.
And now that we have joined the dots for you, let's hear the government's side of the story. And this is majorly in response to the questions that have been raised, such as, why did it take this long? I mean, what spurred this decision by the government? What happened to others who are still in detention? And many more questions. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Garabashe, who joins us tonight on the program via Skype from Abuja. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this Christmas.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas to you and your viewers.
Definitely, we wish you the same. Now, let's get into this topic. Mr. Sowore and Colonel Dasuki, retired, have been released from detention. Now, the big question first is, was this as a result of any pressure from either within or outside the country, or as a result of the president's respect for the rule of law, seeing that, the courts have ordered their release on bail? So what was responsible for this release?
The Attorney General of the Federation has explained the position of the government. If you like, call it a new leaf. If you like, accept the fact that government has renewed a determination to show the example of how the courts should be treated, even when you are feeling aggrieved. In this particular case, the government has its own rights as to how and why the bail was given and an intention to appeal. However, the government is saying, okay, let us do this to show respect for the courts of the land, so that all of this thing about the lack of respect of due process would just give us a chance and leave the table for now.
So are you implying that prior to this decision, the government had been disrespecting the rule of law? Is that what you're implying?
No, no. On the contrary, if you have paid attention to the Attorney General of the Federation over all of this period, the government has a position on the non-release founded in the laws of the country. The Attorney General has made clear over time that there is a major principle of the law which says that the rights of the majority, the rights of the community where they are under threat, they override the right of the individual. This is a case that the Attorney General had taken to the conference of the Nigeria Bar Association, and it is underscored by your decision by the Nigeria Supreme Court. So if there is a perception that that the freedom of an individual is a threat to the larger freedom of the larger community, then that freedom of the individual will be sacrificed. It's a major principle. So the fact that Attorney General has decided to say, well, let's just do what the courts have said, and from here, go on to appeal the bails. I think that there's no controversy there.
Right, because the question for a lot of people is that why did it take this long, to obey those orders? Because, I mean, if they can be released yesterday, could be released yesterday, they could have been released much earlier. So why did it take this long? That's the question a lot of people are asking.
Because the Attorney General of the Federation is convinced that their continued detention did not breach the laws of the country, that it is consistent with the laws and the adjudication of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. But I think that this is purely a legal question. Get your time, find the Attorney General, let him throw more light on this. Our understanding is that he believes that the decision to keep them there was strongly founded in the law, and so therefore it is not something that is extrajudicial.
Right. Mr. Garbashew, you have consistently, spoken in support of the government regarding Mr. Sowore's detention and Colonel Dasuki's detention as well. So, on a personal note, are you disappointed they were let go?
No, absolutely no. I have no reason to feel disappointed, because my job is, if the government takes a position, I will stand with that position. The government has decided that this is the new position, and we will defend it all the way.
Right. Now, another issue which I'd like to bring up is, the two men have been released, but if you look at the response from SERAP, for example, while commending the release of these two men, they're also asking that Agba Jalingo also be released. So what will be the stance of the government on that? Is that something the government is also looking into?
Well, individuals are at liberty to express their own opinions. If it is the sense of SERAP or whoever, is that all the prisons should be emptied and everyone be sent home, let them hold their own opinion. But the law of the country will be upheld, and please, the media have a duty to encourage those on bail to obey the terms on the basis of which they are given the bail. And the fact that one is given a bail does not necessarily mean acquittal.
Right. When you say terms of bail, now, I believe this is related to Mr. Sowore and Colonel Dasuki's bail. So what are those terms that perhaps you want to educate people such that they can obey?
No, I have no, the courts have spelled this out. It is not the administration of Buhari that outlined the details and the terms of the bills that were given. So please check the records. The courts have outlined this, and the beneficiaries, I'm sure, are fully aware of the terms on the basis of which the surety signed and obtained their freedom.
Because you bring it up, apparently it's a major issue. So have they perhaps violated some of these conditions? Or why did you bring it up is my concern here.
Are you saying that they have violated the terms of the bill in the last 24 hours? I'm not aware of that myself.
All right. Now, Mr. Shehu, I'm sure you will perhaps agree that this whole situation, from Colonel Sambo Dasuki's detention to Mr. Sowore's detention, has affected the government's image for a lot of Nigerians. In fact, this is when a lot of Nigerians brought up the issue of human rights violation, press freedom, and what have you. So what's the government plan to sort of, manage what we have on ground right now?
Well, the government, I think the problem we have had over this period is largely media created, because there is a deliberate intention to distort information and make it appear as if this is a government, this is a country that should not be governed by laws in any way. Otherwise, if people are before courts of the law and they are being tried for alleged offenses, what ordinarily should have been assumed is that they be allowed to go through the trial and they're either acquitted or convicted. But in a situation where every suspect is assumed to be, is projected as being a victim, and in some cases, victims of, for instance, the Sowore that you have just mentioned, we have a problem with the media consistently projecting him as a journalist when this is a candidate in election who lost the election along with the others. Those others who lost the election, they went to the courts, up to the Supreme Court, and they lost. In this particular case, this gentleman said, no, the thing to do is I want to pull out crowds and bring down the government. Now, our law says this is an offense. And people are saying, no, because he's a journalist or he practiced journalism, he should not be subject to our laws. So Nigerians have the choice to make. President Muhammadu Buhari is 1 out of 200 million people. He has made the sacrifice to lead this country, but to assume that because the president insists that there should be due process of the law, it's wickedness. No, that's absolutely unfair.
Mr. Shehu, I think the concern for a lot of people perhaps is not his position. It's the fact that there were court orders that ordered he be released on bail. I think that's the major issue people were concerned
but
with.
I told you a little earlier that the Attorney General of the Federation, who is the custodian, who is the chief law officer, as far as the government is concerned, has a sufficient foundation in law. He has convinced everyone, the government inclusive, that there is a basis for their continued detention, because the individual right must not undermine collective right. And it's a philosophical question in law. Yes, there are some people who believe it, there are some who don't. The Attorney General of the Federation believes in that, and he said it's a position that has been vindicated by the Supreme Court of the Federation. So therefore, he is convinced that he's right. The government is convinced that the Attorney General is leading this matter in a manner that is right. The fact that the president has decided.
Right, I just want to be clear. So is this a compromise on the part of government? Because you say that the government has enough reasons to actually hold on to them, but now they have been released. So is the government compromising here?
The government is not compromising anything, but that the government wants to set an important example of obedience of the law, even where you disagree with what the court says you should do.
Right. Now, another issue, moving away from that, is a statement that was credited to you recently about a cabal, and this went viral. I'm sure you have seen response to that statement which you made. So just to put it on account, what exactly were you trying to drive at with that statement? Because for a lot of people, they believe you said that there is a cabal in the presidency just to, align with some of the controversies and statements that have been going around.
Okay, let me ask you this question. When Mr. Jonathan was in his office, wasn't it said that he had a cabal? When President Eradua was in office, wasn't it said that he had a cabal? So what we're saying is that Nigerians have formed a practice by labeling people that in advisory positions of the president as a cabal. And we're saying that in some other societies, they look at these people and say, well, that's a kitchen cabinet. And it's a privilege to be positioned to be in anyway, to be trusted by the president, to be a member of the president's secretariat. There is no sin in that, and the president deserves to get this support. And people should not be labeled negatively simply because they have offered themselves to support the president of this country. And for all you care to know, a lot of these people whose names have been dragged into this cabal thing, they are respectable Nigerians who have achieved a lot for themselves and for the nation, and they are not there as hungry people who are there to grab things for themselves. They deserve respect.
Mr. Garbashew, would like to thank you so much for taking time out of your holidays. I mean, it's Christmas, to talk to Nigerians on this issue. We've been speaking with Mr. Garbashew, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity. Thank you for your time this evening, and Merry Christmas.
I appreciate it. Same to you.